Alex always checked the screen. Richard Winters, Claire's father. He hesitated before answering. Richard's voice came through, formal as always. I'm downstairs. Thought I'd stop by and see my granddaughter. Actually, we're heading out. Alex felt the familiar tension that always accompanied interactions with his father-in-law. Richard had never quite forgiven him for not somehow preventing Claire's illness, as if his wealth and influence should have been enough to save her. On a Tuesday evening, where could you possibly be taking her dinner? With a friend. The lie came easily. I see. Richard's tone cooled further. Well, I'm already here. I could watch her while you go. She's coming with me. It's not a business dinner. The silence stretched long enough that Alex wondered if the call had dropped. Then Richard spoke, his voice quiet and cutting. You're using that child as a shield against life, Alexander. Claire wouldn't have wanted that for either of you. Alex's jaw tightened. About the order, Alex began wanting to explain that it wasn't charity or showing off, but Hannah gently cut him off. I know what you're going to say, and it's okay. You were being kind. I'm learning to accept kindness without questioning motives. It's a work in progress. She glanced back at the sleeping Ellie, her expression softening. She's lucky to have you, you know. A lot of dads wouldn't have stepped up the way you have. Alex swallowed hard, unused to praise for his parenting. Most days I feel like I'm failing her. That's how you know you're doing it right, Hannah said with quiet certainty. The bad parents never worry if they're doing enough. She opened the door, then hesitated. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Just the two of us. The question hung in the air between them, fraught with possibility. Alex found himself nodding before he had fully processed the implications. I'd like that. Good. Hannah's smile was like sunrise after a long night. So would I. As she climbed the stairs to her building, Alex watched until she was safely inside, then sat for a moment longer trying to understand what had just happened. It felt like the first step on a journey he had never expected to take, one that both terrified and exhilarated him. For a few days, things felt easy. Texts exchanged late at night, quick coffees before work, a quiet lunch at a park bench while Ellie chased pigeons nearby. Nothing official, nothing spoken aloud, but something gentle had begun to bloom. Hannah shared more about her brother, Jake, now applying to colleges, with her encouragement. Alex opened up about the pressure of running his late father's company, the weight of legacy, the loneliness of leadership. They discovered shared tastes in books, in music, debated the merits of various ice cream flavors, and gradually built a friendship that felt both new and somehow familiar. Ellie thrived under their combined attention, bringing home drawings from Bright Steps that increasingly featured three figures: Daddy, me, and Miss Hannah. Alex carefully saved each one, touched by his daughter's intuitive acceptance of Hannah in their lives. He should have known it was too good to last. The first sign came when Hannah mentioned casually that her supervisor had called her in for an unexpected review. Just routine probably, she said, but her eyes betrayed her concern. Something about the timing feels off. The next day she texted to cancel their coffee date. Sorry, emergency at work, talk later. But later never came. That evening his calls went unanswered. The following day, Ellie came home from Bright Steps confused and upset because Miss Hannah wasn't there and nobody would tell me where she went. By day 3, Alex was pacing in his office, rereading her last message from 2 nights ago. Today was nice. Ellie's panda story made me laugh. Sleep well, Alex. Richard called, concerned about Ellie's sudden regression, nightmares, clinginess, asking repeatedly for Hannah. Alex admitted he didn't know what had happened, that Hannah had simply disappeared from their lives as suddenly as she had entered. She's probably just busy, Richard suggested, but his tone implied he believed otherwise. These young women often have complicated lives. The dismissiveness in his father-in-law's voice stirred something protective in Alex. Hannah isn't like that. Something's wrong. He called Bright Steps only to be told that Miss Moore no longer worked there. No, they couldn't provide any additional information. Yes, they understood his concern as a parent, but privacy policies prevented them from sharing personnel details. He drove past her apartment building, noting with alarm that her window remained dark each night. He left messages that went unanswered, sent texts that showed as delivered, but unread. By the end of the week, when a small cream envelope arrived at the Pierce Industries front desk, with his name written in careful script, he knew. This was goodbye. He opened it alone in his office, hands uncharacteristically unsteady. Alex, I didn't know how else to say this, and I figured a letter was more honest than vanishing completely. You are a good man, a kind man, one who makes his daughter feel safe enough to nap on someone's shoulder in the middle of a busy restaurant. But I am not the kind of woman who belongs in your world. I don't own a single dress that costs more than what I make in a week. I have to think twice before using the dryer in winter. I patch my socks. My dreams are practical, not grand. You are skyscrapers and corner offices and plans made 5 years in advance. I am temporary. I always have been. Please don't try to make me permanent in a world that has never had space for me. And please tell Ellie I think she is the bravest little girl I've ever met. Hannah, Alex sat still for a long time, the letter trembling slightly in his hands. Temporary. What a cruel word for such a gentle person to apply to herself. He had not seen this coming. Not after the laughter they had shared, the quiet confidences exchanged over coffee, the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. She had never seemed uncertain before, had never given any indication that she felt out of place in his life. What had changed? He picked up his phone, typed, "You don't get to decide what world you belong in, Hannah. Not alone." Then deleted it. She had made her choice. He had no right to challenge it, no matter how wrong it felt. Later that night, Ellie climbed into his lap with her usual enthusiasm, bunny in one hand and a crumpled paper flower in the other. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging his sleeve, "is Miss Hannah mad at me?" Alex's breath caught. "No, sweetie, of course not. Why would you think that? She said she would teach me a song about stars. I practiced." Her small face crumpled with confusion. "But she didn't come back." That made something in his chest twist painfully. That Hannah, so soft with his daughter, so careful with her feelings, had left without a word to Ellie. He looked down at his daughter's face, her hope, her hurt, and struggled to find the right words. "Sometimes grown-ups have to go away for a while," he said at last, hating how inadequate it sounded. "Like Mommy?" Ellie asked, her eyes wide with a child's terrible understanding. "No, not like Mommy," Alex said, quickly pulling her close. "Miss Hannah just... Sometimes grown-ups get scared. Like monsters." Ellie frowned, trying to process this new information. "No, not monsters. More like scared they're not enough." Ellie considered this, her small brow furrowed in concentration. "But she was enough for me." Alex smiled, his heart breaking anew at his daughter's simple wisdom. "I know, sweetheart," he whispered. "She was for me, too." That night, after Ellie finally fell asleep, clutching Bunny and the paper flower Hannah had made her weeks ago, Alex stood in the hallway of his penthouse staring at the small drawing taped to the refrigerator. Ellie had drawn it that morning after breakfast with all the proud concentration of a child creating her masterpiece. Crayon lines, messy colors, but clear enough to make his heart stutter. 3 figures, one tall, one small one, with a yellow circle of scribbled hair. Above their heads, she had carefully printed, "Dad, me, Hannah." Beside them stood a crooked little house, a garden full of purple dots, and a sun that smiled. He had not been able to speak for a full minute after Ellie handed it to him. "I drew our family," she had said simply, "even if Miss Hannah is far away now." Family, it was a word that used to mean only pain. After Claire died, he had told himself that love was something he did not deserve again. He had tried so hard to save her, doctor after doctor, hospital after hospital, and in the end she had gone anyway, fear in her eyes as she squeezed his hand and whispered, "Take care of our girl." But there was more she had not said, words she had never had time to speak, dreams she had never gotten to live. He had carried that guilt every day since, the guilt of being the one who still breathed while she was gone, the one who got to wake up to sunshine and a daughter's giggles, the one who had started to feel again, to want again. And now, because of that same fear of loving someone, only to lose them again, he had let Hannah walk away. He had let her think she was not enough when the truth was that he was the one who had felt unworthy all along. An hour later, Alex walked through the doors of the Bright Steps Child Care Center, determination propelling each step. The familiar smell of finger paint and soap greeted him, along with the cheerful chaos of children's voices. The walls were lined with colorful posters and tiny coats hung on hooks labeled with each child's name. A group of toddlers napped in the corner on floor mats, while others built block towers under a teacher's watchful eye. The center director, Mrs. Peterson, a stern woman with kind eyes, met him at the front desk. Her expression tightened when she saw him. "Mr. Carter, we weren't expecting you until normal pickup time. Ellie's in the sunflower room with Miss Jackson today." "I'm not here for Ellie. I need to speak with Hannah Moore." Mrs. Peterson's hand stilled on the visitor log. "Miss Moore no longer works here, as I believe we informed you over the phone." Why Alex kept his voice low but firm. "She was an excellent teacher. Ellie adored her. I'm afraid I can't discuss personnel matters." The center's privacy policy, was she fired? Was there a complaint? Alex leaned forward using the same intensity that had closed billion-dollar deals. Because if there was, I'd like to know the details. Mrs. Peterson sighed, removing her reading glasses. "Mr. Carter, I understand your concern, but I truly cannot discuss this. What I can tell you is that Miss Moore was a wonderful teacher who left of her own accord." When Alex pressed, "Last Friday, she collected her things during nap time and submitted her resignation effective immediately. It was unusual but not unprecedented in our field." Alex's mind raced. Friday, the same day Hannah had canceled their coffee. The same day everything had changed. Did she say why Mrs. Peterson hesitated, then seemed to make a decision? She said something about a conflict of interest. "That's all I can tell you. Conflict of interest." The words echoed in Alex's mind as he thanked Mrs. Peterson and left the center. Outside, the early autumn sunshine felt incongruously bright compared to his darkening thoughts. He loosened his tie, a habit from stressful board meetings, and pulled out his phone. His finger hovered over Hannah's number before he switched to a different contact. Emma Chen, his executive assistant, answered on the first ring. "I need you to clear my schedule for the afternoon and find me everything you can on Maxwell Pierce's recent activities, particularly anything related to Bright Steps Child Care Center." 3 hours later, Alex sat in his home office surrounded by documents Emma had compiled. Property records showed that the building housing Bright Steps was owned by a subsidiary of Pierce Holdings, Maxwell's personal investment company, separate from Pierce Industries. Recent memos indicated plans to sell the property to developers interested in converting the block into luxury condominiums. Alex leaned back in his chair, the pieces falling into place. Had Maxwell somehow discovered his interest in Hannah? Had he pressured her to leave? It seemed paranoid, and yet... His phone chimed with a text from Richard. "Coming by to drop off Ellie's forgotten sweater. Be there in 20. Alex gathered the documents, sliding them into a folder. Richard had known Maxwell for decades. Perhaps he could shed some light on the situation. When Richard arrived, he brought not only Ellie's sweater, but also a small bag of homemade cookies. "They're Claire's recipe," he explained, his voice softer than usual. "I thought Ellie might like them." Alex invited him in, surprised by the gesture. For 2 years, their relationship had been civil but strained, both men too broken by Claire's loss to offer each other true comfort. This small offering felt like a tentative olive branch. Ellie was napping, so they sat in the kitchen, the awkward silence broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall, Claire's clock brought from her childhood home. Richard took a sip of the coffee Alex had offered. "So have you found her?" Alex looked up sharply. "Found who?" "This teacher Ellie keeps talking about. The one who disappeared." Richard's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were shrewd. "Ellie seems quite attached." "Her name is Hannah," Alex said, carefully. "And no, I haven't found her. She left her job at Bright Steps and stopped returning my calls." Richard nodded slowly. "Probably for the best. Getting Ellie's hopes up wouldn't be fair to anyone." "What's that supposed to mean?" Richard set down his cup with deliberate care. "Let's not pretend, Alexander. You met a young woman, felt some attraction, maybe even thought about bringing her into your life. But realistically, what future could there be? You're a widower with a child and responsibilities." "She's what, 25, with her whole life ahead of her." "She's 30, Alex corrected automatically. "And I'm not sure what her age has to do with anything." Richard's expression softened unexpectedly. "I know you're lonely. I know raising Ellie alone isn't what you planned. But rushing into something with the first woman who shows kindness to your daughter isn't the answer." Alex stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "It wasn't like that." Richard sighed. "Did Claire ever tell you about the letter?" Alex froze. "What letter?" Richard reached into his jacket pocket, withdrawing an envelope yellowed with age. "She asked me to give this to you if you ever started to move on. I've been carrying it for 2 years, waiting for the right moment." Alex took the envelope with unsteady hands. Claire's handwriting graced the front, "For Alex when you're ready." The seal was unbroken, the paper fragile with time. I'll leave you to read it, Richard said, standing. Just remember, Claire loved you both more than anything. Whatever decisions you make, honor that love. After Richard left, Alex sat alone at the kitchen table, the unopened letter before him. Fear kept his hands still. What final message had Claire left? What blessing or burden would her words place on him? Finally gathering his courage, he broke the seal. My darling Alex, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you finally started to let someone new into your heart. First, know that I'm grateful. Grateful that you and our little girl are not alone. Grateful that you've found the strength to love again. I need you to understand something important. You didn't fail me. You didn't let me down. There was nothing more you could have done, no treatment you missed, no specialist you should have found. Cancer doesn't care about determination or wealth or love, no matter how fierce. You moved mountains trying to save me, and I want you to know that I saw every effort, felt every sacrifice, and I am at peace. But here's what I worry about, that you'll punish yourself for surviving. That you'll deny yourself happiness because I couldn't share it. That you'll use our daughter as an excuse to keep the world at arm's length. So I'm giving you permission. No, I'm begging you to live fully, to laugh without guilt, to love without reservation. Whoever this woman is reading over your shoulder, and I hope someday she is, I want her to know that there's room in our family's story for her chapters too. The only promise I ask, tell Ellie about me. Not just the sad parts, but the joy too. The silly dances in the kitchen, the bedtime stories, the dreams we had for her. Let me live in her memories, even as you build new ones together. I loved you completely, Alex. Now I'm asking you to love again with that same beautiful completeness. Forever yours, even as I set you free, Claire. Alex lowered the letter, tears streaming unchecked down his face. All this time he'd carried the weight of failure, of promises unkept. And all this time Claire had already forgiven him, had already blessed whatever future he might find. He carefully folded the letter, placing it back in its envelope. Then he did something he hadn't done since the funeral. He opened the cabinet where he kept Claire's photos and took out their wedding album. Page by page, he reacquainted himself with the woman who had loved him enough to ensure his happiness even after she was gone. When Ellie woke from her nap, she found him still at the table surrounded by photographs. She climbed into his lap, pointing at a picture of Claire laughing by a fountain. "That's Mommy," she said, her small finger tracing Claire's smile. "She's pretty." Yes, she was. Alex agreed, his voice steady, and brave and kind, and silly sometimes. Just like you. Ellie turned her solemn gaze to him. "Would Mommy like Miss Hannah?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask that, Ellie Bean?" "Because Miss Hannah makes you smile like Mommy does in the pictures." Out of the mouths of babes. Alex hugged his daughter close, overwhelmed by her perception. "I think Mommy would like Miss Hannah very much. But Miss Hannah had to go away for a while. When is she coming back?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm going to try to find out." The following morning, Alex called an emergency meeting with his executive team. As they filed into the conference room, their expressions ranged from curious to concerned. Maxwell Pierce arrived last, his silver hair immaculately styled, his custom suit projecting authority and tradition. "Alex, what's this about?" Maxwell took his usual seat at the opposite end of the table. "The Beijing deal closing is in 3 days. We should be focusing on that." Alex remained standing, a power move he rarely employed. "Actually, this meeting is about Bright Steps Child Care Center and the property it occupies." A flicker of surprise crossed Maxwell's face before his expression smoothed into polite interest. "That's hardly a matter for an executive meeting. Pierce Holdings handles those investments separately." "Normally, I'd agree." Alex clicked a remote, bringing up property records on the screen behind him. "But when I discovered that Pierce Holdings plans to evict a child care center that serves over 100 families, including employees of Pierce Industries, it became relevant to this room." A murmur rippled through the executives. Maxwell's smile tightened. Business decisions sometimes require difficult choices. The property has been underperforming for years. The sale to Artemis Development has already been approved by my board. "And when was this decision made?" Alex pressed. 2 weeks ago, Maxwell replied smoothly. "The tenants will receive proper notice and relocation assistance." Interesting timing, Alex noted, maintaining eye contact with Maxwell. "Because it seems the director of Bright Steps only learned about this potential sale yesterday from me. Confusion and minor details." Maxwell waved dismissively. Now, if we could return to actual company business, I've prepared an alternative proposal. Alex distributed folders to each executive. Pierce Industries will purchase the property from Pierce Holdings at market value plus 10%. We'll renovate the existing structure, expand the childcare program, and add an employee wellness center on the upper floors. The executives began reviewing the documents with interest. Maxwell's face darkened. You can't be serious. The return on investment would be minimal. Actually, Alex clicked to the next slide. Our analysis shows that expanded childcare benefits would reduce employee turnover by an estimated 14%, saving us millions annually, not to mention the tax benefits and community goodwill. Maxwell stood abruptly. This is absurd. You're jeopardizing a lucrative deal because your daughter's teacher works at this center. Worked, Alex corrected quietly. She resigned recently. Rather suddenly, in fact. A heavy silence fell over the room. Maxwell's implication and Alex's response hung in the air, transforming a business discussion into something more personal. This isn't about one teacher, Alex continued, his voice level. It's about the kind of company we want to be. One that values profit at any cost, or one that recognizes our responsibility to the communities we operate in. The CFO cleared her throat. The numbers in this proposal are solid, Maxwell. It makes financial sense long-term, even if the immediate return isn't as high as the Artemis deal. One by one, the executives voiced support for Alex's plan. Maxwell watched his expression growing increasingly rigid as his majority slipped away. Fine, he said finally. Have your child care center, but don't expect me to forget this, Alexander. His cold gaze locked with Alex's. Your father knew the difference between business and sentiment. Perhaps you need a reminder. The meeting adjourned, leaving Alex and Maxwell alone in the conference room. The older man gathered his papers methodically, his movements precise and controlled. Was it you, Alex asked the question that had burned in him for days, finally finding voice. Did you pressure Hannah to leave Bright Steps? Maxwell didn't look up. I have no idea what you're talking about. Hannah Moore, the teacher who resigned the same day your company decided to sell the building. Maxwell's laugh was short and dismissive. You think I concern myself with the employment decisions of childcare workers? You've been CEO too long, Alexander. You're seeing conspiracies where there are only coincidences. He moved toward the door, then paused. But since you brought her up, I did run a standard background check when I heard rumors about your interest. Standard procedure for anyone associating closely with the CEO of Pierce Industries. And Alex demanded. Maxwell shrugged. Nothing particularly concerning. Dropped out of college to raise her brother after their parents died. No criminal record. Some financial struggles, but who hasn't had those? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Though her brother Jake has quite the scholarship opportunity at Princeton, it would be a shame if the foundation's priorities shifted elsewhere. The threat, thinly veiled, hung in the air between them. Alex stepped closer, lowering his voice. Stay away from her, Maxwell, and her family, or what Maxwell's expression hardened. You'll fire me. The board would never allow it. I built this company alongside your father. I've guided it through recessions and market crashes. You're just the heir who happened to have the right last name. Maybe Alex conceded, but I wonder what the board would say about your personal interest in the Artemis deal, particularly your ownership stake in their parent company. Maxwell's composure slipped momentarily. What are you implying? Nothing yet, Alex said evenly. Just suggesting that everyone has secrets they'd prefer to keep private, even company chairmen. Maxwell's eyes narrowed. This isn't over, he warned before striding from the room. Alex remained still, processing what he'd learned. Maxwell had investigated. Hannah had possibly threatened her brother's future. But why? What threat could a child care worker possibly pose to a man like Maxwell Pierce? Unless the threat wasn't to Maxwell, but to his plans for Alex. The realization came suddenly, pieces clicking into place. Catherine Pierce, Maxwell's daughter, Alex's former girlfriend. The relationship Maxwell had subtly encouraged for years, positioning Catherine as the perfect corporate wife. The merger of two powerful families that Maxwell had always wanted. And then Hannah had appeared, disrupting those carefully laid plans. Alex returned to his office, mind racing. Emma met him at the door, her expression concerned. Sir, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's quite insistent. Alex checked his watch. I have a call with Tokyo in 15 minutes. He says his name is Jake Moore. Hannah's brother. Alex looked up sharply. Send him in. Jake Moore was 18, tall and lanky, with the same golden hair as his sister, though his was cut short and somewhat unruly. He wore jeans and a Princeton sweatshirt, his expression a mixture of determination and nerves. Mr. Carter Jake stood awkwardly in the doorway. I need to talk to you about my sister. Alex gestured to a chair. Come in. And it's Alex, please. Jake remained standing. I'd rather make this quick. Hannah doesn't know I'm here, and she'd kill me if she found out. Is she okay? Alex asked the question that had haunted him for days. No. Jake's bluntness was startling. She's miserable. She quit her job. She's barely sleeping, and she keeps looking at your daughter's drawings like they're some kind of treasure. But she's convinced she's doing the right thing. Did someone pressure her to stay away from us, from me? Jake hesitated, then nodded. Some old guy came to our apartment last Friday, dressed like money, talked like he owned the world. Said he was from the Pierce Foundation, the one giving me my scholarship. Maxwell Alex confirmed his suspicions solidified. What did he say to her? That getting involved with you would create complications? That my scholarship might be reconsidered if there were any conflicts of interest? That the center might lose its lease? Jake's hands clenched into fists. She gave up everything for me once already. I couldn't let her do it again. So you came here to tell me to back off, Alex asked quietly. Jake shook his head. I came to ask you to fight for her. If you care about her at all, show her that this guy's threats don't matter, that you can stand up to him. Because she won't fight for herself, she never has. The Tokyo call can wait. Alex decided. Where is she now? At the apartment, Jake replied, working on a big order for some birthday party. But Mr. Carter, Alex, she's stubborn. She won't make it easy. Alex smiled for the first time that day. That's okay. Nothing worthwhile ever is. The red brick building looked exactly as it had the night Alex had watched Hannah return home. The vines still climbed the rusted gate, the stairs still creaked under his weight as he climbed to the 4th floor. The only difference was that this time he wasn't merely observing, he was fighting for something he hadn't known he wanted until it slipped away. He knocked on apartment 4C, heart pounding, with an anxiety he hadn't felt since asking Claire to marry him 15 years earlier. Footsteps approached, then paused. Through the door, he heard Hannah's voice, uncertain and hopeful. Jake, did you forget your key again? It's not, Jake, Alex replied softly. Silence followed, then the sound of multiple locks being undone. The door opened a few inches, revealing Hannah's face pale and drawn, her eyes widening at the sight of him. Alex, what are you doing here? He had rehearsed this moment, planned what he would say. But standing there, seeing the shadows under her eyes and the flour dusting her cheek, all his careful words evaporated. You don't get to decide what world you belong to, Hannah. Not alone, she blinked, her grip on the door tightening. I don't know what you're talking about. Your letter, about not belonging in my world, about being temporary. He took a deep breath. I know Maxwell Pierce came to see you. I know about the threats. Hannah's composure cracked slightly. How did you? Jake told me, Alex admitted. He came to my office today. He shouldn't have done that, Hannah murmured, looking away. He loves you. He doesn't want to see you sacrifice your happiness for his future. None of us do. Hannah's laugh was hollow. There is no us, Alex. That's the point. I can't be the reason your business relationships suffer. I can't be why Jake loses his shot at college. I can't risk Ellie getting attached to someone who might disappear. Alex reached out gently, taking her hand. What if I told you Maxwell Pierce doesn't control my company, that I've already confronted him about the Bright Steps property, that Jake's scholarship is secure regardless of what Maxwell threatens? Hannah hesitated, hope and fear battling in her expression. It's not just that. You and I, we're from different worlds. You saw my apartment. You know how I live. I saw more than your apartment, Alex countered. I saw how you treat my daughter, how you mend your clothes instead of replacing them, how you build a business from nothing but talent and determination, how you gave up your dreams to raise your brother. Through the doorway, Alex could see into the tiny kitchen where boxes of cupcakes and cookies sat ready for delivery. The space was cluttered but immaculate, every surface scrubbed clean, every tool organized with care. This was the home of someone who made the most of what she had, who created beauty from limited resources. Claire wrote me a letter before she died. He continued, his voice softening. She asked me to open it when I was ready to move on, when I met someone who made me want to try again. Hannah's eyes glistened with unshed tears. What did it say that I didn't fail her? That she wanted me to live fully, to love without reservation. That there was room in our family's story for new chapters. Alex squeezed Hannah's hand gently. She would have liked you, you know. You both have that same quiet strength. Hannah opened the door wider, finally inviting him in. The apartment was small but warmly furnished with mismatched pieces that somehow worked together. Books filled every available shelf, and children's artwork, including several pieces Alex recognized as Ellie's, decorated the refrigerator. Ellie asks about you every day, he said, watching as Hannah moved around the kitchen, her hands automatically checking the cupcake boxes even as her mind was clearly elsewhere. She drew another family picture yesterday, the three of us at the park. Hannah's movement stilled. I miss her too, more than I expected. Then come back, Alex urged. Not to Bright Steps, I understand if that's too complicated now, but come back to us, to whatever this might become. Hannah turned to face him, fully vulnerability and resolve mingling in her expression. And what might it become, Alex? What are you really asking? The question hung between them, demanding honesty. Alex closed the distance between them, taking both her hands in his. I'm asking for a chance, for time to discover what we could be to each other, for permission to bring you into our lives, mine and Ellie's, not as a temporary visitor, but as someone who might stay. Hannah's breath caught. That's a lot to promise. I'm not promising anything except honesty, Alex clarified. And the courage to try even when it's scary, even when it seems impossible. A timer dinged, breaking the moment. Hannah reluctantly pulled away to remove a tray of cookies from the oven, perfect golden bears with chocolate chip eyes. I need to finish this order, she said, her practical nature reasserting itself. And you need to think about what Maxwell Pierce might do if you pursue this, whatever this is. I already have, Alex assured her, and I've decided some things are worth fighting for. Hannah smiled despite herself, the first real smile he'd seen since entering her apartment. You sound like a greeting card. Maybe I do, he admitted with a chuckle, but it's still true. As Hannah continued working, Alex sat at her tiny kitchen table telling her about the board meeting, about his plan for Bright Steps, about Ellie's reaction to Claire's cookies. The conversation flowed naturally, picking up where they had left off days earlier, as if the separation had been nothing more than a brief interruption. When the order was complete, Alex helped Hannah carry the boxes down to her waiting delivery service, a neighborhood teenager with a bicycle equipped with a large basket. As they watched him pedal away, Hannah turned to Alex, her expression serious again. I can't just jump back into this, she said quietly. I need to think, to be sure we're not making a mistake. Take all the time you need, Alex told her. We'll be waiting. He left her standing on the steps of her building, the afternoon sun turning her hair to gold. As he drove away, he felt lighter than he had in days, the weight of uncertainty replaced by a quiet determination. Hannah Moore might not be ready to join their world yet, but he was more than ready to fight for her place in it. The next morning, Alex woke to his phone ringing. The screen displayed an unfamiliar number. Hello, Mr. Carter, a woman's voice, professional, but with an edge of concern. This is Mrs. Peterson from Bright Steps. I'm calling about Ellie. Alex sat up immediately, fully alert. Is she all right? She's running a fever of a 102. We've called your emergency contacts, but your father-in-law isn't answering, and your assistant said you were in meetings all morning. I'll be right there, Alex assured her, already searching for his shoes. Has she asked for anything? A brief hesitation. She's been asking for Miss Moore, for Hannah. In her fever, she seems confused about why she isn't here. Alex's heart twisted. Thank you, I'm on my way. 20 minutes later, he rushed into Bright Steps to find Ellie curled on a cot in the nurse's office, her cheeks flushed with fever. Bunny clutched to her chest. When she saw him, she reached out weakly. Daddy, I don't feel good. Where's Miss Hannah? I want Miss Hannah. Alex lifted her, gently, alarmed by the heat radiating from her small body. Shh, Ellie Bean. Daddy's here now. We're going to go see the doctor. No, Ellie insisted, her voice tearful. Want Miss Hannah. She makes the bad dreams go away. Mrs. Peterson exchanged a concerned look with Alex. The fever started suddenly about an hour ago. We've been monitoring her closely. Thank you, Alex said, gathering Ellie's belongings with one hand while holding her with the other. I'm taking her to Dr. Mendelsohn. Outside, he carefully secured Ellie in her car seat, her normally vibrant energy replaced by listless exhaustion. As he drove toward the pediatrician's office, he made a decision. Pulling over, he dialed Hannah's number, praying she would answer. To his relief, she picked up on the third ring. Alex, is everything okay? It's Ellie, he explained quickly. She's sick, high fever. She's asking for you. Hannah didn't hesitate. Where are you taking her? Dr. Mendelsohn's office on 82nd. I know it, Hannah replied. I'll meet you there. True to her word, Hannah was waiting in the parking lot when they arrived, her hair hastily pulled back, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She rushed to help as Alex lifted Ellie from the car. Hey, little panda, she murmured, brushing Ellie's damp curls from her forehead. I heard you're not feeling so good today. Ellie's eyes fluttered open, recognition bringing a weak smile to her flushed face. Miss Hannah, she whispered, you came back. Of course I did, Hannah assured her, exchanging a meaningful look with Alex over Ellie's head. I just had to go away for a little while. Together, they carried Ellie into the doctor's office, a united front in the face of childhood illness. Dr. Mendelsohn diagnosed a severe ear infection, prescribing antibiotics and rest. Throughout the examination, Hannah held Ellie's hand, singing softly when the doctor's probing caused discomfort, her presence a balm to both father and daughter. As they left the office, prescription in hand, Alex turned to Hannah. Will you come home with us? Just until she falls asleep. She'll want you there. Hannah nodded, her earlier reservations temporarily set aside in the face of Ellie's need. I'll follow you in my car. At the penthouse, they settled Ellie in her bed, Hannah reading story after story while Alex prepared the medicine and called Richard to update him. When Ellie finally drifted off to sleep, Hannah tucked Bunny securely under her arm and joined Alex in the kitchen. Thank you for coming, he said, handing her a cup of tea. I didn't know who else to call. Hannah accepted the cup, her fingers brushing his. I'm glad you did. I've missed her so much. They sat at the kitchen island, the silence between them comfortable. Now the earlier tension dissolved by their shared concern for Ellie. Alex watched as Hannah absently traced the rim of her cup, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. Penny, for your thoughts, he asked gently. Hannah smiled, a hint of her usual warmth returning. I was just thinking about how quickly she became important to me, how much it hurt to walk away from both of you. Then don't, Alex suggested simply. It's not that easy, she sighed. There's still Maxwell Pierce to consider. Your company, Jake's future. Alex reached across the counter, covering her hand with his. Maxwell Pierce doesn't control our lives unless we let him. As for the company, it's just a business. Important, yes, but not worth sacrificing happiness for. That's easy to say when you've never had to choose between happiness and security, Hannah pointed out gently. No, but I've had to choose between hiding from life and embracing it, Alex countered. After Claire died, I chose hiding. I used Ellie as an excuse, built walls around us, convinced myself we were safer that way. But we weren't living, not really. Hannah's expression softened. And now, I'm choosing to live, he said simply. To try, to risk being hurt again because the alternative is worse. The question is, what are you choosing, Hannah? Before she could answer, a cry came from Ellie's room. They both moved immediately, parental instincts overriding any personal uncertainty. Ellie was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her feverish face. Bad dream, she sobbed as Hannah gathered her close. The monster was taking you away again. No monsters here, little panda, Hannah soothed, rocking gently. Just dreams, and I'm right here. Promise, Ellie hiccuped, her small hand clutching Hannah's sweater. I promise, Hannah whispered, meeting Alex's gaze over Ellie's head, something resolute forming in her expression. Later, after Ellie had been comforted, medicated, and returned to sleep, they stood in the hallway outside her room, the weight of unspoken decisions hanging between them. I should go, Hannah said finally, but I'll come back tomorrow to check on her if that's okay. More than okay, Alex assured her. We'd both like that. At the front door, Hannah paused, turning back to him with newfound determination. That question you asked earlier about what I'm choosing, I don't have the answer yet, but I'm closer than I was. She left him standing in the doorway, watching as she waited for the elevator. Just before the doors closed, she smiled, a real smile full of promise and possibility. The next morning, Alex woke to find 3 missed calls from Maxwell Pierce. Before he could return them, his phone rang again. Catherine Pierce, Maxwell's daughter. Alex, we need to talk, she said without preamble. It's about my father. They met at a quiet cafe near Central Park. Catherine looking elegantly understated in a simple black dress, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. At 35, she remained one of the most sought-after women in Manhattan's social circles, beautiful, intelligent, and the heir to the Pierce fortune. Thank you for meeting me, she said as Alex slid into the seat across from her. How's Ellie better today, Alex replied, studying Catherine's face for any sign of her father's influence. The fever's down and she's responding well to the antibiotics. Catherine nodded genuine relief in her expression. She's a special little girl. I've always thought so. They ordered coffee, the awkwardness of former lovers giving way to the camaraderie of old friends. Despite their brief romantic history, Alex and Catherine had always respected each other, their relationship ending amicably when both realized they wanted different futures. My father is planning something, Catherine said, finally her voice low. He came home furious after your board meeting yesterday. I haven't seen him this angry since the Cooper merger fell through. Did he mention what he's planning? Alex asked, equally quiet. Catherine stirred her coffee, avoiding his gaze. He made some calls to the foundation. Something about scholarship reviews and property assessments. And he mentioned a woman named Hannah Moore. Alex's hand tightened around his cup. Did he say what he was going to do? Not specifically, Catherine admitted. But I know that tone. He's building a case against her, looking for leverage. Alex? She hesitated, then continued. Who is she? This Hannah, she's Ellie's former teacher, Alex explained, and someone important to us both. Catherine's eyes widened slightly. You're involved with her. We're exploring the possibility, Alex said carefully. And my father disapproves, Catherine concluded, understanding dawning. Because she's not from our world. Because she's not, you, Alex finished gently. Catherine laughed, the sound surprisingly genuine. Oh, Alex, my father never understood that we were better as friends than lovers. He's been pushing us together since college, convinced we're the perfect power couple. I know, Alex acknowledged. It took me longer to realize it, but I got there eventually. Catherine leaned forward, her expression serious. Listen to me. If my father is targeting this woman, he believes she's a threat to his plans, which means she must be truly important to you. She, as Alex admitted the simple truth, feeling revolutionary. Then fight for her, Catherine urged, and let me help. Alex studied her, surprised. Why would you do that? Catherine's smile turned wistful. Because I remember how you were with Claire, how your whole face lit up when she entered a room. If you've found someone who makes you feel that way again, who makes Ellie happy, then you deserve to explore it without my father's interference. What did you have in mind? Alex asked, hope beginning to build. Catherine reached into her handbag, withdrawing a flash drive. This contains financial records my father doesn't know I have access to. Records of certain transactions that wouldn't survive public scrutiny. Use them if you have to. Alex took the drive, stunned by the implied betrayal. Catherine, this could destroy your relationship with him. She shrugged, a gesture that didn't quite hide her pain. Maybe it's time someone stood up to him. Even if it has to be me. As they parted ways, Catherine squeezed his hand. Bring her to the charity gala next weekend. Show my father that you're not intimidated. And Alex, make sure she knows what she's walking into. Society events can be shark tanks for newcomers. The charity gala. Alex had forgotten the annual Pierce Foundation fundraiser, the social event of the season. Bringing Hannah would be a bold statement, perhaps too bold too soon. But Catherine's suggestion had merit. Confronting Maxwell on his own territory might be the only way to end his interference once and for all. That afternoon, Alex visited Hannah at her apartment, finding her in the midst of baking for a large weekend order. Flour dusted her cheeks, and her hair was secured in a messy bun. She looked beautiful. Ellie's feeling better, he reported, accepting the cookie she offered. Her fever broke this morning. Thank goodness Hannah's relief was palpable. I was worried all night. She wants to know when you're coming over again, Alex added. Watching Hannah's expression soften. Tomorrow I promise to teach her that panda song. Alex hesitated, then plunged ahead. Actually, I was hoping you might join us for something else as well. The Pierce Foundation is hosting their annual charity gala this Saturday. I'd like you to come with me. Hannah's hands stilled in the cookie dough. A charity gala with your board members and executives? And Maxwell Pierce, Alex confirmed. Catherine will be there too. She suggested I bring you. Hannah's eyebrows rose. Your ex-girlfriend wants me to attend a society's event with you, Alex explained his meeting with Catherine the flash drive, the suggestion to confront Maxwell publicly. As he spoke, Hannah's expression shifted from surprise to thoughtfulness. You really want to challenge him this way? She asked when he finished. It could backfire spectacularly. It could, Alex acknowledged. Or it could end his interference permanently. Show him that we're not hiding, not ashamed, not intimidated. We, Hannah repeated softly. You keep saying we. Alex stepped closer, taking her flower-covered hands in his. Because that's how I see this, Hannah. Not you alone against Maxwell. Not me defending you, but us together standing our ground. Hannah looked down at their joined hands, then back up at him, something resolute forming in her eyes. I don't have anything to wear to a charity gala. Alex smiled, recognizing the acceptance in her practical concern. We can solve that problem. No. Hannah shook her head firmly. I'll handle it myself. If I'm going to face Maxwell Pierce, I need to do it as myself, not as someone you transformed for the occasion. Alex's respect for her deepened. Of course. Whatever you need. What I need, Hannah said slowly, is to know what I'm walking into. Tell me about these people, Alex, about their world, about what to expect. So he did, describing the elaborate ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, the excessive floral arrangements, the silent auction of luxury items no one needed. He told her about the subtle social hierarchies, the air kisses, and backhanded compliments, the way wealth and influence were displayed through designer labels and carefully casual references to vacation homes. Hannah listened intently, asking occasional questions, her practical mind mapping the territory she would soon enter. When he finished, she nodded thoughtfully. Sounds like a different planet, she admitted, but not an uninhabitable one. You don't have to do this, Alex reminded her. We could find another way. Hannah squared her shoulders, a streak of flour highlighting her determined expression. No, it's time to face him directly, to show him that I'm not so easily scared away. The week passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Ellie recovered, fully delighted to have Hannah back in their lives. Jake visited the penthouse, initially wary of Alex's, but warming to him after discovering their shared love of vintage motorcycles. Richard called daily, his tone gradually shifting from concern to cautious support. And through it all, Maxwell Pierce remained ominously silent. The night of the gala arrived clear and cool, stars visible, even through Manhattan's light pollution. Alex adjusted his bow tie in the mirror, mentally rehearsing what he would say when they inevitably confronted Maxwell. Beside him, Ellie bounced on his bed in her pajamas, excited by the novelty of Richard coming to babysit. Do I look pretty, Daddy? She asked, twirling in her unicorn nightgown. The prettiest, Alex assured her, tickling her until she collapsed in giggles. Will Miss Hannah look pretty too? The most beautiful woman in the room. Alex predicted his stomach tightening with anticipation. Hannah had insisted on meeting him at the plaza, refusing his offer to pick her up. Another demonstration of her independence that he both respected and found mildly frustrating. Richard arrived promptly at 7, a stack of children's books tucked under his arm. His eyebrows rose slightly at Alex's formal attire. The Pierce Gala, I'd forgotten that was tonight. Alex nodded, checking his watch. I should go. Ellie's had dinner, but she'll try to negotiate a second dessert. Don't fall for the puppy eyes. Richard chuckled, settling onto the sofa as Ellie immediately claimed his lap. I raised Claire. Remember, I'm immune to manipulation from Carter women. As Alex headed for the door, Richard called after him. She must be special, this Hannah, for you to brave Maxwell's territory with her. Alex paused, hand on the doorknob. She is. Then give Maxwell hell, Richard said with unexpected fierceness. Claire would have wanted that. The plaza's ballroom glittered with chandelier light, the elite of Manhattan society draped in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. Alex moved through the crowd, accepting greetings from business associates and social acquaintances, his eyes constantly scanning for Hannah. He spotted Maxwell first, holding court near the champagne fountain, Catherine at his side, looking elegant but trapped. Maxwell's gaze found Alex's across the room, a cold acknowledgement passing between them, before Maxwell deliberately turned away. Alex checked his watch again. Hannah was 15 minutes late, unusual for someone typically so punctual. Had she changed her mind? Decided the confrontation wasn't worth the stress. Then the crowd near the entrance parted, and there she was. Hannah Moore entered the ballroom alone, her chin held high, her stride confident despite the obvious newness of the setting. She wore a simple midnight blue gown that skimmed her figure without clinging, its only adornment, a delicate silver pendant at her throat. Her golden hair was swept into an elegant updo, revealing the graceful line of her neck. She wasn't dressed in the latest designer fashion like most women in the room. Her jewelry wasn't dripping with diamonds. Her makeup was minimal, highlighting her natural beauty rather than transforming it. And yet, as she moved through the crowd, heads turned. Not because she was trying to stand out, but because authenticity in this room of careful facades was as noticeable as a shout in a library. Alex moved toward her, his heart pounding with an emotion he hadn't allowed himself to name until this moment. Love. Simple, complicated, terrifying love. Oh, my mom. When Hannah saw him, her face lit with the smile that outshone the chandeliers. She reached for his outstretched hand, squeezing it briefly as they came together in the center of the ballroom. You came, he said, the relief in his voice embarrassingly obvious. I said I would, Hannah replied, her eyes taking in the opulent surroundings. Besides, I've never seen a champagne fountain before. It seemed worth the subway ride. Alex laughed, tension he hadn't realized he was carrying melting away. You took the subway in that dress? Hannah's eyes danced with mischief. I took a cab most of the way. But yes, there was a subway involved. The reactions were priceless. As they moved deeper into the ballroom, Alex introduced Hannah to colleagues and friends, watching with pride as she charmed them with her natural warmth and quick wit. She didn't pretend to know about yachting in the Mediterranean or skiing in Gstaad. Instead, she asked questions, listened attentively, and shared stories about the children at Bright Steps that had even the most jaded socialites smiling. Catherine found them near the silent auction tables, her relief evident as she kissed Alex's cheek and extended her hand to Hannah. You must be the famous Hannah Moore, she said warmly. I've heard so much about you. All good, I hope, Hannah replied, accepting Catherine's hand with a smile that held no jealousy or insecurity. From Alex, absolutely glowing, Catherine assured her. From my father. Well, she glanced meaningfully across the room where Maxwell watched them, his expression thunderous. Speaking of your father, Alex said quietly, I think it's time we had that conversation. Catherine touched his arm. Be careful, Alex. He's been drinking and he's already furious that I invited the Bright Steps board members. They're by the east windows if you need allies. Hannah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Let's get this over with. Together they crossed the ballroom, a path clearing before them as guests sensed the coming confrontation. Maxwell watched their approach, his silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers, his tuxedo impeccable, his expression a mask of cold disdain. Alexander he greeted with forced cordiality. And Ms. Moore, what an unexpected pleasure. Is it? Alex replied coolly. I rather thought you'd be expecting us after your visit to Hannah's apartment last week. Maxwell's smile tightened. A routine matter. The foundation checks on all scholarship recipients periodically and threatens their families. Hannah asked, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. Suggests their future depends on staying away from certain people. Conversations interrupted around them as guests turned to listen, the drama more enticing than the champagne or caviar. Maxwell's face hardened, the public challenge clearly unexpected. You misunderstood, Ms. Moore. I merely explained potential complications that might arise from certain associations. You threatened my brother's education? Hannah corrected, her voice gaining strength. You implied the child care center would lose its lease. You tried to intimidate me into walking away from Alex and Ellie. A murmur rippled through the watching crowd. Maxwell's hand tightened around his champagne flute, his composure slipping slightly. You're making a scene, he hissed. This is hardly the place. Actually, I think it's the perfect place, Alex interrupted. We're better to discuss the ethics of the Pierce Foundation than at its own fundraiser. I'm sure the donors would be fascinated to learn how scholarship decisions are really made. Maxwell's face flushed with anger and alcohol. You ungrateful. He caught himself aware of the audience. This is business, Alexander. Nothing personal. It became personal the moment you targeted Hannah. Alex countered. The moment you used a child's education as leverage. The moment you tried to control who I could care about. The crowd had grown, donors and board members forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Among them, Alex spotted the Bright Steps board members Catherine had mentioned, their expressions shifting from confusion to outrage as they pieced together the conversation. Maxwell sensed his position, weakening his gaze, darting around the circle of witnesses. His next words emerged precise and cutting, aimed to wound rather than persuade. You're making a fool of yourself over a glorified babysitter, Alexander. Your father would be ashamed. Your wife would be devastated. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers. Even for Maxwell, invoking Claire crossed a line. Alex stepped forward, fury building in his chest, but Hannah's hand on his arm stopped him. My role as a child care provider is one I'm proud of, Mr. Pierce, she said, her voice clear enough to carry to every ear in the sudden silence. I help shape young minds during their most formative years. I comfort them when they're hurt, challenge them when they're ready to grow, and celebrate each small victory with them. She stepped closer to Maxwell, unintimidated by his height or status. But I don't expect you to understand the value in that. You measure worth in dollars and influence, not in kindness or character. That's why you'll never understand what Alex and Ellie see in me, because you've forgotten how to see people instead of assets. The words hung in the air, simple but devastating in their truth. Maxwell's face drained of color, then flushed again as he struggled for a response. Before he could speak, Catherine appeared at his side, her hand on his arm mirroring Hannah's earlier gesture with Alex. That's enough, Father, she said quietly but firmly. You're embarrassing yourself and the foundation. Maxwell shook off her hand, his control finally shattering. You're taking their side. After everything I've built for you, I'm choosing decency, Catherine replied steadily. Something you seem to have forgotten about. As Maxwell sputtered, the Bright Steps board president stepped forward, his expression grave. Mr. Pierce, in light of what we've heard tonight, the board will be reviewing our relationship with the Pierce Foundation immediately. We cannot condone the use of children's futures as bargaining chips in personal vendettas. Other donors murmured agreement, the tide of public opinion visibly turning against Maxwell. He looked around wildly, searching for allies and finding none. Even his most loyal supporters had stepped back, unwilling to be associated with his tactics. This isn't over, he warned Alex, his voice low and dangerous. You'll regret this public humiliation. No, Maxwell, Alex replied evenly. It is over. Your threats, your manipulation, your control, all of it ends tonight. As Maxwell stormed from the ballroom, the crowd parted silently. The evening's entertainment concluded. Catherine approached Alex and Hannah, genuine admiration in her eyes. That was without question the most exciting charity gala in Pierce Foundation history, she said, offering Hannah a glass of champagne. Welcome to the family, Ms. Moore. Hannah accepted the glass with a slightly shaky hand. Thank you, though I'm not sure I'm family just yet. Catherine's smile was knowing. Give it time. I've never seen Alex look at anyone the way he looks at you. Not even she stopped herself. Not even Claire, Alex finished quietly. It's okay to say her name, Catherine. She'll always be part of our family story. Hannah slipped her hand into his, a simple gesture of support and connection. And I would never want to change that. Ellie needs to know her mother, even if only through stories and photographs. As the gala resumed around them, guests returning to champagne and conversation, Alex led Hannah to a quiet alcove overlooking the city lights. She leaned against the windowsill, the adrenaline of confrontation finally fading from her system. You were incredible in there, he told her, still amazed by her poise and courage. I've never seen anyone stand up to Maxwell like that. Hannah smiled tiredly. Honestly, I was terrified. But when he mentioned Claire, she shook her head. That was unforgivable. Alex nodded, studying her face in the soft light. What you said about being proud of your work, that wasn't just for his benefit, was it? No, Hannah confirmed. I love what I do. The money isn't great, the hours are long, and most days I go home covered in finger paint and apple juice. But making a difference in children's lives, she shrugged. There's nothing more important. Alex took her hands in his, marveling at their strength and gentleness. You know, I've been thinking about what you said in your letter, about belonging in my world. Hannah tensed slightly. Alex, let me finish, he requested gently. I think we were both wrong. It's not about you belonging in my world or me fitting into yours. It's about building something new together, a world that has room for both of us exactly as we are. Hannah's eyes softened, hope beginning to replace uncertainty. That's a lovely thought. But the practical challenges haven't disappeared just because we stood up to Maxwell. I know, Alex acknowledged. Your apartment, my penthouse, your entrepreneurial dreams, my corporate responsibilities, your independence, my overprotective tendencies. He smiled ruefully. We have plenty to figure out. Hannah laughed, the sound genuine and relaxed. When you put it that way, it sounds impossible. Or like an adventure, Alex suggested, drawing her closer. One I'd very much like to take with you, if you're willing. Hannah looked up at him, all pretense and barriers finally gone. I think I am, she said softly, terrified but willing. As they rejoined the gala, a different energy flowed between them, the excitement of possibility, the comfort of shared understanding, the beginning of something neither had expected, but both now embraced. For Alex, watching Hannah navigate the remainder of the evening with quiet confidence, the future suddenly seemed full of promise. Not because all obstacles had vanished, but because they would face them together, building a new world one day at a time. Monday morning arrived with a cold drizzle that turned the city streets slick and reflective. Alex straightened his tie in the elevator mirror, mentally rehearsing what he would say at the emergency board meeting. The flash drive Catherine had given him felt heavier than his actual weight in his pocket, a nuclear option he hoped not to use. Pierce Industries headquarters hummed with tension as he walked through the executive floor. Employees averted their eyes or offered tight smiles, word of Saturday night's confrontation with Maxwell having spread through the company grapevine at lightning speed. Emma met him at his office door, her expression both worried and proud. The board is assembled, sir. Mr. Pierce arrived early with his attorneys. Alex nodded, unsurprised. Saturday night at the gala had only been the opening salvo in what promised to be a bitter corporate war. He'd spent Sunday gathering his own ammunition, financial records, emails board, minutes spanning decades. The picture they painted of Maxwell's dealings was troubling at best, criminal at worst. Outside the boardroom, Alex paused, centering himself. Through the frosted glass, he could see the silhouettes of the board members, 12 men and women who would decide the future of Pierce Industries today. Maxwell's distinctive profile dominated the head of the table, gesturing emphatically as he spoke. With a deep breath, Alex pushed open the door and entered. The conversation died immediately, all eyes turning to him. Maxwell's face hardened, but he remained seated, a calculated show of confidence. Alexander, he greeted coldly. I was just explaining to the board your recent erratic behavior, your public scene at the gala, your emotional decision-making regarding company properties. Alex set his briefcase on the table, maintaining eye contact with each board member in turn. I apologize for my lateness. I wanted to ensure I had all the relevant information before we began. From the far end of the table, Diane Lester, the longest-serving board member and a contemporary of Alex's father, spoke up. Alex, we're concerned. Maxwell has shared some troubling accounts of your conduct recently. I'm sure he has. Alex acknowledged, opening his briefcase. And I'd like to address those concerns directly. But first, I believe the board deserves the complete picture of Maxwell Pierce's leadership over the past decade. He withdrew a stack of folders, passing them to his assistant to distribute. Inside each was a meticulously documented account of Maxwell's financial manipulations. Shell companies receiving Pierce Industries contracts, property deals, benefiting Maxwell's personal holdings, tax structures that skirted legality. As the board members flipped through the pages, their expressions shifted from skepticism to shock. Maxwell's face reddened, his attorney leaning to whisper urgently in his ear. This is a desperate smear campaign, Maxwell snapped, slamming his palm on the table. Manufactured evidence from a man trying to save his position. Every document in those folders can be independently verified, Alex countered calmly. I've included the sources and timestamps for each transaction. I've also taken the liberty of sending copies to the SEC and our external auditors this morning. A stunned silence fell over the room. One of the younger board members, a tech entrepreneur named Priya Shah, was the first to recover. Mr. Pierce, these look like significant conflicts of interest at minimum. Can you explain the Cayman Islands accounts on page 12? Maxwell stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is absurd. I've dedicated my life to this company. I built it alongside Alexander's father from nothing. And yet, you've been systematically undermining it for your own gain, Alex interjected. Tell them about Artemis Development, Maxwell. Tell them about your 40% ownership stake in a company attempting to purchase Pierce Holdings at below-market rates. Murmurs rippled through the board. Maxwell's attorney placed a restraining hand on his client's arm, but Maxwell shook it off, fury overriding caution. You self-righteous pup, he snarled, advancing toward Alex. You think you understand business. The risks I've taken, the compromises necessary to build something that lasts. Your father knew. He approved everything. Even the pressure tactics against the Moore family 5 years ago, Alex asked quietly. The accidents arranged when they wouldn't sell their property. The boardroom door swung open before Maxwell could respond. Hannah stood in the doorway dressed simply in a blue blouse and gray pencil skirt, her expression resolute despite her obvious discomfort in the corporate setting. I apologize for interrupting, she said, her voice steady, but I believe my presence was requested. Alex crossed to her side, surprised but grateful. Thank you for coming. Maxwell's face contorted with rage. This is outrageous. She has no place here. Actually, Diane Lester interjected, rising from her seat. I invited Ms. Moore. After witnessing your behavior at the gala, I wanted to hear her account directly. Hannah stepped forward, nodding respectfully to the board members. I'm not here to cause trouble or to make accusations without evidence. I'm here because 5 years ago my parents died in a car accident after refusing to sell their property to a developer. A developer I now know was a subsidiary of Pierce Holdings. She withdrew a file from her bag, placing it on the table. These are the police reports, the insurance investigations, and the maintenance records for my parents' car. The brake line was cut clearly, deliberately cut. The investigator ruled it an accident because there was no proof of who did it. But the timing, just days after they refused a final offer from Artemis Development, seems more than coincidental. Maxwell's attorney stood. This is preposterous. You're accusing Mr. Pierce of involvement in a homicide based on circumstantial evidence from 5 years ago. I'm not accusing anyone specifically, Hannah clarified. I'm presenting facts that the board should consider alongside the financial information Alex has provided. Maxwell lunged forward suddenly, reaching for Hannah's file. This meeting is over. You have no right. His movement was halted by the appearance of Catherine Pierce, who entered silently and positioned herself between her father and Hannah. The tension in the room crackled like electricity before a storm. That's enough, Father Catherine said firmly. Her gaze swept the room, settling on each board member in turn. I have additional information that may be relevant to your deliberations today. From her portfolio, she withdrew her own set of documents, emails, bank statements, and photographs. When Maxwell attempted to seize them, she stepped deftly aside, her expression unflinching. 5 years ago, I discovered discrepancies in the foundation's accounts, Catherine explained, distributing her evidence. Payments to individuals with criminal backgrounds. Correspondence about obstacles to be removed. I confronted my father then, and he assured me it was necessary business management, that sometimes pressure needed to be applied to reluctant sellers. Her voice wavered for the first time. I believed him. I chose to believe him because the alternative was unthinkable. That my father, the man who raised me to value integrity and honesty, would resort to criminal intimidation, perhaps worse, to achieve his business goals. Maxwell's face had drained of color, his earlier bluster replaced by a dawning understanding of his position. Catherine, he whispered hoarsely, you're destroying everything we've built. Catherine met his gaze, her eyes bright with unshed tears. You destroyed it first, Father, when you crossed lines that should never be crossed, when profit and power became more important than principle. The board sat in stunned silence, the gravity of the allegations sinking in. Diane Lester finally broke the silence, her voice heavy with regret. I think we've heard enough. I move that we suspend Maxwell Pierce from his position as chairman effective immediately pending a full investigation. The vote was unanimous. As security personnel were called to escort Maxwell from the building, he turned to Alex one last time, his voice low and threatening. You'll regret this, Alexander. You've made a powerful enemy today. Alex met his gaze steadily. No, Maxwell. I've finally honored my father's true legacy. Not the compromises and shortcuts you convinced him were necessary, but the values he instilled in me before you corrupted his vision. As Maxwell was led away, the remaining board members approached Hannah and Catherine, offering subdued thanks for their courage. Diane Lester placed a weathered hand on Alex's shoulder. The board will need to appoint an interim chairman, she said quietly. We'd like it to be you, Alex. He shook his head, glancing at Hannah, who stood nearby. I appreciate the confidence, but I think Pierce Industries needs a fresh perspective. Someone with both experience and integrity. His gaze shifted meaningfully to Catherine, whose expression registered surprise. Me? That's impossible. After what my father... It's precisely because you stood up to your father that you're the right choice, Alex interrupted gently. You've demonstrated that principles matter more than family loyalty or personal gain. The company needs that moral compass strong more than ever. The board members exchanged thoughtful looks, considering the suggestion. Priya Shah nodded slowly. It has merit. Catherine knows the company intimately, but isn't implicated in any of Maxwell's schemes. And the symbolism of a daughter cleaning up her father's mess sends a powerful message to shareholders. I'd need time to consider, Catherine said, clearly overwhelmed. This isn't a position I ever sought, but Of course, Diane agreed. The board will need time for formal deliberations anyway. For now, we'll establish an emergency leadership committee. As the meeting concluded, Alex, Hannah, and Catherine walked together to the elevator, the weight of the morning's events evident in their silence. Only when the doors closed, sealing them off from the corporate turbulence, did Hannah finally speak. You did it. You actually brought him down. Alex exhaled slowly, tension draining from his shoulders. We did it. Together. But it's just the beginning. There will be investigations, possibly criminal charges. The company will be under scrutiny for months. Catherine leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly looking exhausted. My father will fight back. He still has allies' resources. This isn't over. Hannah reached out, surprising both Alex and Catherine by taking their hands in hers. Then we'll face whatever comes next together. That's what family does. Family. The word hung in the air between them, its meaning shifted and expanded by the morning's events. Not just blood relations, but chosen connections. People united by shared values and mutual support rather than obligation or expectation. As they exited the building into the persistent drizzle, Catherine hugged them both briefly before departing for her own car. Hannah and Alex stood for a moment under the overhang, watching the rain create patterns on the pavement. So what happens now? Hannah asked softly. Alex smiled, taking her hand as they stepped into the rain. Now we build something new. The week following Maxwell's removal passed in a blur of activity. Pierce Industries stock initially plummeted as news of the scandal broke, then stabilized as Catherine stepped into her interim leadership role with surprising authority. Alex focused on damage control, meeting with key clients and investors to reassure them of the company's stability and renewed ethical commitment. Hannah returned to her apartment, needing space to process everything that had happened. But she and Alex spoke daily, their conversations deepening as the immediate crisis subsided and longer-term questions emerged. Where was their relationship heading? How would Ellie fit into any future they might build? What about Hannah's dreams of opening her own children's bookstore and bakery? 10 days after the board meeting, Alex invited Hannah to dinner at his penthouse. Richard had taken Ellie for the evening, leaving them privacy to talk seriously about the future. Hannah arrived with a small box of cupcakes, panda-shaped naturally, and a nervous energy that matched Alex's own. They ate on the balcony despite the October chill, the city lights creating a backdrop of twinkling possibility. Over dessert, Alex finally broached the subject they had been circling. I've been thinking about your dream, the children's bookstore and bakery. What if we made it real? Hannah set down her fork, studying his expression. What do you mean exactly? Alex withdrew a folder from beside his chair, opening it to reveal architectural renderings of a charming storefront. Large windows, cozy reading nooks, an open kitchen where children could watch baking demonstrations. Every detail captured the vision Hannah had described to him weeks earlier. There's a vacant space in Chelsea, he explained. Good foot traffic close to several schools. The building needs renovation, but the bones are solid. Hannah flipped through the drawings, her expression a mixture of wonder and hesitation. This is beautiful, Alex, but I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not a gift, he clarified quickly. It's an investment opportunity, a business partnership if you're interested. She looked up sharply. A partnership? Alex nodded, leaning forward earnestly. You provide the concept, the expertise, the heart of the business. I provide the initial capital and business guidance. We split ownership 50-50. All decisions made together. Hannah set the folder aside, her brow furrowed. Why you could invest in practically anything with better returns. Because I believe in you, Alex replied simply. And because I've learned that true value isn't measured solely in financial returns. This business would bring joy to children, create community, offer something meaningful. Just like you do. Hannah rose, walking to the balcony railing. The city spread before her, vast and intimidating, yet somehow more navigable than when she'd first arrived 5 years earlier. She had built a life here, modest but meaningful. Was she ready to risk expanding that life to include Alex and Ellie more permanently? I need to show you something, she said, finally returning to her bag and withdrawing a business plan, handwritten, detailed, clearly developed over years of dreaming and planning. My version. I've been working on it since college. Alex accepted the notebook, struck by the thoroughness of her vision. From financial projections to daily operations, marketing strategies, to community outreach programs, Hannah had thought through every aspect of her dream. This wasn't just a fantasy, it was a meticulously crafted blueprint. "This is impressive," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Why didn't you show me this before?" Hannah shrugged, a hint of vulnerability in the gesture. "Because it's always been just a dream, something to work toward in some distant future when I had enough savings, enough experience, enough everything." Alex closed the notebook carefully, returning it to her. "What if that future isn't as distant as you thought? What if we combined your plan with my resources? Built something that's truly ours?" The implication of ours hung between them, not just a business partnership, but something more enduring. Hannah sat beside him again, her expression thoughtful. "It would need to be my vision," she said firmly. "I'd welcome your input, but the soul of it, the children's programs, the book selections, the baking philosophy, that needs to be mine." "Absolutely," Alex agreed immediately. "I wouldn't dream of interfering with the creative direction. That's where your expertise shines, and I'd want to pay you back eventually," Hannah continued. "Maybe not immediately, but over time. Convert your investment into a loan with reasonable terms." Alex started to protest, then recognized the importance of her independence. "If that's what would make you comfortable, we can structure it that way, though I'd still want to maintain partnership status." Hannah smiled, tension easing from her shoulders. "You really believe in this, don't you?" Believe in you," Alex corrected gently. "The business is just an extension of that belief." As moonlight silvered the city around them, they began sketching the framework of their partnership, both professional and personal. Neither rushing nor retreating, but deliberately building something sustainable, something true. The following Sunday, Hannah invited Alex and Ellie to her apartment for the first time. Though he had seen it from outside, had even entered briefly during their reconciliation, this formal invitation represented a significant step, Hannah opening her private world to them completely. Ellie bounced with excitement as they climbed the 4 flights of stairs, Bunny clutched in one arm and a carefully wrapped package in the other. When Hannah opened the door, Ellie rushed forward, wrapping her arms around Hannah's legs. "We brought you a present," Ellie announced, thrusting the package upward. "I made it myself." "Well, Daddy helped a little." Hannah ushered them inside, touched by the gesture. The apartment had been tidied, but she'd resisted the urge to hide evidence of her modest circumstances. Books still overflowed the shelves, her sewing basket sat by the second-hand couch, and the kitchen remained tiny but immaculately organized. Ellie immediately began exploring, fascinated by Hannah's collection of children's books and the colorful magnets decorating her refrigerator. Alex moved more cautiously, absorbing details he had missed during his previous visit: family photos, handmade quilts, well-worn cookbooks. The space was small but deeply personal, reflecting Hannah's values and priorities. "Aren't you going to open it?" Ellie demanded, pointing to the forgotten package in Hannah's hands. Hannah sat on the couch, carefully unwrapping the gift. Inside lay a small bracelet made of colorful beads and charms, clearly Ellie's handiwork, with adult assistance for the clasp mechanism. At the center dangled a tiny silver panda charm. "I noticed you have a panda bracelet already," Ellie explained earnestly. "But it looked lonely, so I made you a friend for it." Hannah slipped the bracelet onto her wrist alongside the simple band she often wore, the one with the small panda pendant that Alex had noticed during their first dinner. She blinked rapidly against unexpected tears. "It's perfect, Ellie. Thank you." Alex sat beside them, curious about Hannah's reaction. "The other bracelet, is it special?" Hannah nodded, touching the older band gently. "It was a gift from my parents on my 20th birthday, just before the accident." She unclasped it, revealing a worn inscription inside: "For our storyteller, never stop believing in happy endings." "It's the last thing they gave me," Hannah explained softly. "I wear it every day to remember them." Ellie leaned against Hannah's knee, her expression solemn. "My mommy is in heaven too. Daddy says she watches over us." "Yes, she does," Hannah agreed, meeting Alex's gaze over Ellie's head. "And she must be so proud of you both." The moment crystallized something for Alex, watching Hannah handle his daughter's innocent comment about Claire with such grace and honesty. There was no jealousy, no attempt to replace or diminish Claire's memory. Instead, Hannah made space for her presence in their lives, honoring what had been while nurturing what could be. After dinner, a simple but delicious meal Hannah had prepared, Ellie fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from exploring every corner of the apartment. Alex carried her to Hannah's bed for a nap, returning to find Hannah sorting through a box she'd pulled from a high shelf. "What's all this?" he asked, joining her at the small kitchen table. Hannah hesitated, then pushed the box toward him. "Things I've been collecting for the store. Ideas, sketches, recipes. Whenever I found something that inspired me, I saved it." Alex examined the contents, magazine clippings of cozy reading nooks, handwritten recipes, photos of creative bookshelves, and child-friendly spaces. Years of dreams captured and preserved despite limited resources and pressing responsibilities. "You never gave up on it," he observed, "even when it seemed impossible." Hannah smiled, a hint of embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "Foolish, maybe, but it kept me going during the hardest times. After my parents died, when Jake was struggling in school, when money was tightest, I'd look at these and remember why I was working so hard." "Not foolish," Alex corrected. "Visionary. Most people let go of their dreams when reality gets tough. You held on." The conversation shifted to practical matters: potential locations, renovation timelines, licensing requirements. As they talked, Alex noticed Hannah repeatedly glancing at a worn leather book partially hidden beneath a kitchen towel. Following her gaze, he raised an eyebrow. "Something else you want to show me?" Hannah hesitated, then retrieved the book, a journal with faded gold initials CW embossed on the cover. "Claire's initials. Richard gave this to me last week," she explained, handling it with obvious care. "He thought I should read it." Alex stared at the journal, stunned. "That's Claire's diary, from before we were married." Hannah nodded, her expression uncertain. "Richard said it might help me understand everything, but I haven't opened it yet. It didn't feel right without your permission." Alex reached for the journal, running his fingers over the familiar initials. Claire had kept diaries for years, filling them with observations, dreams, sketches. After her death, he had packed them away, unable to bear the intimacy of her thoughts when the pain was still so raw. "Did Richard say why?" he asked quietly. Hannah folded her hands on the table. "He said it contains the Claire that existed before illness changed everything. The woman you fell in love with, not just the patient you lost. He thought it might help me know her as a person, not just a memory." The gesture moved Alex deeply. Richard wasn't trying to replace Claire's memory, but to integrate it into their evolving relationship, to give Hannah insight into the woman who had shaped Alex and mothered Ellie. "I think she would have liked you to read it," he said finally. "Claire valued authenticity above almost everything else. She would have wanted you to know the real her, not just the idealized version grief sometimes creates." Hannah accepted the journal back, her expression solemn. "I'll read it when I'm ready. And Alex, thank you for trusting me with this part of your past." The next several weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Hannah gave notice at her temporary teaching position, focusing her energy on developing the business plan for what they now called Panda Dreams, a name Ellie had suggested during a brainstorming session. Alex balanced his corporate responsibilities with renovation oversight at the Chelsea location, transforming the vacant storefront into Hannah's vision. Catherine settled into her role as interim chairperson, instituting sweeping ethics reforms and transparency measures at Pierce Industries. The board, impressed with her leadership, began discussions about making her position permanent. Maxwell remained uncharacteristically quiet, though his attorneys filed multiple challenges to his removal and threatened litigation against the company. One chilly November afternoon, as Hannah and Alex reviewed kitchen equipment orders at the partially renovated store, Catherine arrived unexpectedly, her expression tense. "We have a problem," she announced without preamble. "My father's made his first move." She handed Alex a tablet displaying an article from a notorious gossip blog. The headline blared, "CEO's gold-digging girlfriend, the truth about Hannah Moore." The accompanying text alleged Hannah had orchestrated her relationship with Alex to gain access to Pierce Industries' resources and insider information, suggesting she had exploited his grief and loneliness. Hannah read it over Alex's shoulder, her face paling. "This is ridiculous. I never—" "It gets worse," Catherine interrupted grimly. He's feeding similar stories to more reputable outlets leveraging his media contacts. And he's reached out to several of your former employers suggesting they review their records for any discrepancies or issues. A character assassination, Alex concluded, setting the tablet aside. Classic Maxwell. When direct confrontation fails, destroy the reputation. Hannah sank onto a nearby stepladder, the implications sinking in. This could affect the store. Parents won't want their children around someone with this kind of reputation. We'll fight it, Alex assured her, kneeling beside her. Issue denials provide context. Catherine's PR team can help. Hannah shook her head slowly. Denials just keep the story alive. And fighting publicly makes it look like there's something to hide. She's right, Catherine acknowledged. My father knows exactly what he's doing. The more you protest, the more attention it gets. The story becomes the response, not the original accusations. Alex's frustration mounted as he recognized the effectiveness of Maxwell's strategy. They could dispute the claims, but the damage was already spreading through social media and gossip channels. By targeting Hannah rather than Alex directly, Maxwell had found their most vulnerable point. Then we don't fight, Hannah said suddenly, a new resolve straightening her shoulders. We ignore him completely and focus on what matters, opening this store and serving the community. Let our actions speak for themselves. Catherine nodded approvingly. Dignity in the face of slander. It won't stop the rumors immediately, but it denies him the satisfaction of seeing you wounded. Alex wasn't convinced. This community means everything to you, Hannah. Your reputation with parents, with schools, it's the foundation of what we're building here. Hannah stood moving to the large front windows, where afternoon sunlight streamed through the newly installed glass. Outside, children and parents passed by, some pausing to peer curiously at the renovation in progress. When I was younger, my mother used to say that truth reveals itself through consistency, she said quietly. People who know me, really know me, won't be swayed by gossip. And those who might believe it initially will see the truth over time. She turned back to face them, determination replacing her earlier distress. We proceed as planned. The grand opening stays on schedule. If Maxwell wants to attack me, let him. I won't be driven away from my dream by fear or shame. Alex and Catherine exchanged impressed glances. Hannah's resilience continued to surprise them both, not just her ability to withstand hardship, but her refusal to be diminished by it. As Catherine departed, promising legal support if the situation escalated, Alex wrapped his arms around Hannah from behind, both of them gazing out at the street that would soon welcome their shared vision. He will escalate, Alex warned softly. This is just the opening move. Hannah leaned back against him, drawing strength from his presence. Whatever he throws at us next, we'll stand united. No more running, no more fear. Her earlier words, now repeated with deeper conviction, cemented something between them, a commitment beyond romance or business partnership. Whatever Maxwell threw at them, they would weather it united. The next attack came 3 days before Panda Dreams' scheduled opening. Hannah arrived at the store early to finalize display arrangements and found the front windows shattered glass littering the newly installed hardwood floors. Inside, bookshelves had been toppled, kitchen equipment damaged, and walls defaced with spray paint, crude messages questioning her character and intentions. When Alex arrived 20 minutes later, he found Hannah calmly photographing the damage for insurance purposes, her expression determined rather than defeated. Workers from neighboring businesses had already offered assistance, bringing brooms and garbage bags, expressing outrage at the vandalism. The police officer taking the report seemed skeptical about Hannah's suggestion that Maxwell might be involved. Without witnesses or security footage, he explained they had little to investigate beyond standard neighborhood vandalism. By mid-morning, word had spread through the community. Parents from Bright Steps appeared with cleaning supplies. Jake arrived with classmates from his community college. Even Richard turned up, rolling up his sleeves without comment and setting to work writing bookshelves and salvaging what could be saved. As the cleanup progressed, a news van parked outside a reporter approaching Hannah for comment on the vandalism and the rumors circulating online. Instead of avoiding the camera, Hannah welcomed the opportunity to speak directly to the community. This store represents a dream I've had since childhood, she explained, standing amid the repairs in progress. A place where children can discover the magic of books and the joy of baking, where imagination and creativity are nurtured. Today's setback won't change that vision or delay our opening. If anything, the support we've received from neighbors and friends has strengthened our commitment to this community. When asked about the allegations regarding her relationship with Alex, Hannah smiled calmly. My personal life is exactly that personal. But I'm proud of the business we're building together and the values it represents. Anyone who visits Panda Dreams will see those values in action. The reporter expecting defensiveness or evasion seemed disarmed by Hannah's transparency and poise. The resulting segment, which aired that evening, portrayed her as a determined entrepreneur facing adversity with grace, precisely the opposite of Maxwell's intended narrative. By sunset, the store had been restored to functional, if not perfect, condition. The windows were boarded up temporarily, the graffiti painted over the salvageable inventory reorganized. Neighbors continued to stop by offering encouragement and promises to attend the grand opening. As Hannah locked up for the night, exhaustion finally catching up with her, Alex touched her shoulder gently. You were amazing today. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of attack. Hannah leaned against him, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability now that the cameras and helpers had departed. I almost did. When I first saw the damage, I thought about walking away, about how much easier life was before all of this. But you didn't, Alex observed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders as they walked toward his car. Hannah shook her head, a small smile forming despite her fatigue. No, I didn't. Because then I remembered what my father used to say, the right path isn't marked by its ease, but by how much it matters to you. And this, she gestured back toward the store, this matters more than my fear. They drove in comfortable silence through the city streets, the events of the dust settling between them. At Hannah's apartment building, Alex turned off the engine but made no move to exit the car. Move in with me, he said suddenly, the words emerging before he'd fully formed the thought. You and Jake, if he wants. The penthouse has plenty of room, and after today, I don't like the idea of you being vulnerable to Maxwell's next move. Hannah studied his face in the dim light from the street lamps. Is that the only reason? Security? Alex shook his head, reaching for her hand. No, it's because I love you, Hannah. I think I have since that first night at La Verre when you offered to pay for dinner without hesitation. When you showed me what genuine kindness looks like without expectation or agenda. Hannah's breath caught the declaration hanging between them. Despite the growing closeness of recent weeks, neither had explicitly named their feelings until now. Ellie loves you too, Alex continued softly, and I think we've both proven we're in this for the long haul. The store, the future we're building, they're just extensions of what's already growing between us. Hannah squeezed his hand, her voice equally soft when she finally responded. I love you both too. More than I thought possible after losing my parents. But moving in together, that's a big step, especially for Ellie. We could take it slowly, Alex suggested. Start with some of your things, see how it feels. Jake could keep the apartment if he prefers his independence. Hannah's smile widened, her eyes bright in the shadowed car. You've thought about this. I've thought about little else since the vandalism, Alex admitted. Life's too short and too precious to waste time being cautious when you're certain about what matters. Hannah leaned across the console, pressing her forehead to his. I'll think about it. Really think about it. But whatever I decide about living arrangements, know that my heart has already moved in with you and Ellie completely. The morning of Panda Dreams' grand opening dawned clear and cold, a perfect December day, with just enough chill to make the promise of fresh baked goods and hot chocolate irresistible. Hannah arrived at dawn, overseeing final preparations with a mixture of nervousness and exhilaration. The damage from the vandalism had been fully repaired, new windows installed, and additional security measures implemented. Alex joined her an hour later, bringing Ellie, who insisted on wearing her panda costume despite the formal nature of the occasion. The store looked magical, shelves filled with carefully curated children's books, reading nooks with comfortable cushions, a demonstration kitchen where children could watch baking in progress, and a cafe area where parents could relax while their little ones explored. By 9 o'clock, a crowd had gathered outside, families from Bright Steps, neighbors from the surrounding blocks, even a few media representatives invited by Catherine's PR team. Richard stood near the front, looking uncharacteristically approachable in a casual sweater rather than his usual formal attire. Jake worked the line, distributing sample cookies and building anticipation. At precisely 10 o'clock, Hannah unlocked the doors, welcoming the community into the realization of her lifelong dream. Children rushed to the bookshelves and reading nooks, while parents explored the cafe menu. The demonstration kitchen began its first session, simple panda-shaped cookies that even the youngest visitors could help decorate. Throughout the morning, Hannah moved from group to group, her joy evident in every interaction. She read stories to clusters of children, demonstrated baking techniques, and chatted with parents about upcoming programs and events. Alex watched from near the register, pride swelling, as he witnessed her in her element, confident, capable, completely at home in the world she had created. Around noon, the bell above the door chimed again. Catherine entered smiling as she took in the bustling scene. Behind her came several Pierce Industries board members, including Diane Lester, who immediately headed for the children's poetry section with evident delight. And behind them, shocking everyone, entered Maxwell Pierce. The store fell silent, parents drawing their children closer instinctively. Maxwell stood just inside the doorway, impeccably dressed in a camel hair coat and leather gloves, his expression unreadable. Security personnel moved subtly toward him, but Hannah gestured for them to wait. She approached Maxwell directly, her posture straight, her voice clear enough to carry through the now quiet store. "Mr. Pierce, I wasn't expecting you today." Maxwell surveyed the space with critical eyes, taking in the children frozen mid-activity, the parents watching warily, the evidence of Hannah's vision, successfully realized despite his interference. "I came to see what all the fuss was about," he said finally, "to understand what was worth destroying my family over." "No one destroyed your family, Mr. Pierce," Hannah replied steadily. "Your actions did that, your choices. But family can be rebuilt on better foundations if you're willing to try." Maxwell's gaze shifted to Catherine, who stood with Alex near the cafe counter. His expression softened momentarily before hardening again. "Some things can't be repaired once broken." Hannah followed his gaze, then turned back to him with unexpected compassion. "In my experience, very little in this world is truly beyond repair. It just requires honesty, effort, and time." For a moment, something vulnerable flickered across Maxwell's face, regret perhaps, or recognition of what he had sacrificed in his pursuit of power and control. Then the mask descended again, his expression cooling into polite indifference. "Congratulations on your establishment, Ms. Moore. It appears you found your niche." He turned to leave, then paused, addressing the room at large. "I've made a donation to your children's literacy program. Anonymous, of course. Consider it restitution for recent inconveniences." Before anyone could respond, he was gone, the bell chiming softly in his wake. The store remained quiet for a long moment before conversation gradually resumed. Parents and children returning to their activities with curious glances at Hannah, Alex, and Catherine. Catherine approached Hannah first, her expression apologetic. "I had no idea he would come. He must have followed us." Hannah shook her head, a small smile forming. "It's all right. I think in his own way, he needed to see what he couldn't destroy, maybe even to acknowledge it." Alex wrapped an arm around her shoulders, amazed once again by her capacity for understanding. "You continue to surprise me, Hannah Moore." Most people would have thrown him out immediately. Hannah leaned into his embrace. "Holding on to anger only hurts the person carrying it. Besides, his donation will fund a lot of books for children who might not otherwise have them. I count that as a win." The remainder of the opening day passed without further drama. By closing time, Panda Dreams had exceeded all first-day projections for sales and memberships. More importantly, the community had embraced the concept completely, children begging to return, and parents signing up for upcoming programs and events. As Hannah locked the doors that evening, surrounded by Alex, Ellie, Jake, Richard, and Catherine, the unconventional family, they had somehow formed exhaustion, mingled with profound satisfaction. This was what she had worked toward all these years. Not just a successful business, but a meaningful contribution to children's lives and a loving circle of people to share it with. Richard approached her as the others gathered coats and belongings, his expression uncharacteristically uncertain. "I have something for you," he said, withdrawing a small velvet box from his pocket. It was Claire's. "I think she would want you to have it." Hannah accepted the box with surprise, opening it to reveal a delicate silver locket. Inside were two tiny photographs, Claire on one side and Ellie as a baby on the other. "I don't know if Alex has talked to you about this," Richard continued quietly, "but Claire believes strongly in chosen family, in the people who come into our lives and change them forever. Regardless of blood or law, she would have considered you part of that chosen family." "As do I." Tears welled in Hannah's eyes as she closed the locket carefully. "Thank you, Richard. That means more than I can express." He nodded gruffly, emotion making further words difficult. Then with a gentle pat on her shoulder, he moved to collect Ellie, who had fallen asleep on one of the reading nook's cushions. Alex appeared at Hannah's side, curiosity in his expression. What was that about? She showed him the locket, explaining Richard's words. Alex's eyes softened as he recognized the piece, a family heirloom Claire had worn often during their marriage. He's right, you know, Alex said, helping her put on the necklace. Claire would have adored you. Not because you're similar, you are actually quite different in many ways, but because you love with the same wholehearted generosity she did. Hannah touched the locket gently where it rested against her collarbone. I've been reading her journal, a little each night. She was remarkable, Alex. Funny and insightful, and so alive on those pages. I know, he agreed softly. That's why it hurt too much to read them after she died. But I'm glad you are. It helps keep her memory honest, neither idealized nor diminished, just real. As they prepared to leave, Alex paused at the counter, reaching into his pocket. One more thing before we go. He withdrew an object. Hannah recognized immediately the Patek Philippe watch that had belonged to his father and grandfather before him. The family heirloom he wore to every important meeting, every significant occasion. This watch has marked the most important moments in the Carter family for 3 generations, he explained, holding it carefully between them. My grandfather wore it when he founded the original company. My father wore it when he transformed it into Pierce Industries. I wore it when I became CEO, when Ellie was born, when we opened this store today. Hannah's breath caught as she understood the significance of what he was offering. Alex, are you not exactly proposing, he clarified quickly. Not yet. That will come when we're both ready with a proper ring and whatever celebration feels right to you. But I am asking you to accept this as a promise that whatever future we build together will honor the past while creating something entirely new. Our own legacy, our own family story. Hannah touched the watch reverently, understanding the weight of history and meaning it carried. I accept it, Alex, not as a symbol of obligation or expectation, but as a promise that time is precious and best spent with those we love. She closed his fingers back around the watch, her smile gentle but determined. But keep wearing it for now. We have many more important moments ahead that need marking. When the time is right, we'll know. Alex returned the watch to his pocket, recognizing and respecting her wisdom. She wasn't refusing his gesture, but reframing it, transforming it from an endpoint into part of their continuing journey together. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the sidewalk with delicate crystals that glittered under the streetlights. Ellie, now awake and bundled in her winter coat, broke free from Richard's hand to spin in circles, arms outstretched to catch the flakes. Look, Daddy. Miss Hannah. It's snowing on our special day. Hannah crouched beside her, catching a snowflake on her fingertip. Do you know what they say about snow on opening day, little panda? Ellie shook her head, eyes wide with anticipation of new knowledge. What? Hannah glanced up at Alex, including him in the moment. They say it means your wishes come true if you believe in them enough. If you work hard and stay kind and never give up on what matters most. Does that mean you'll stay with us forever? Ellie asked the question, emerging with a child's directness. Hannah gathered the little girl close, meeting Alex's gaze over her blonde curls. Nothing in life is forever, sweetheart, but I promise to stay as long as you need me, to love you with my whole heart, and to make every day we have together count. As they walked through the gentle snowfall toward home, Alex, Hannah, Ellie, Richard, Jake, and even Catherine, they formed an unlikely but unbreakable circle, not defined by blood or obligation, but by choice and commitment. A family built not from perfection, but from presence, from stories shared and difficulties overcome, from the brave act of choosing each other day after day. And in that choice to love, despite risk, to trust, despite fear, to build, despite obstacles, they found something rare and precious, something that transformed all their separate stories into a single narrative, more beautiful and complex than any could have written alone.